You know, it's been funny as I work on this piece for Peak Influence, specifically working on the About Us section. I spent a few hours on this segment and had a 10-minute long video telling you about my life from youth sports to my last athletic coaching job when it suddenly hit me. They call this the About Us section on just about every single website in the country. But it's not about us. It's about you. You're here for a very specific reason. You're either looking for growth as a person or as an organization, or you have a very specific pain that you need addressed. Something that has frustrated you to the point that you've finally had enough and you need something to change. And that's good. That's what growth is all about. Now, ideally, we keep growing on our own and we don't need the occasional friendly or sometimes even unfriendly reminder to get our act together. But unfortunately, that's not realistic. That's why I'll always have an executive coach for the rest of my life, and all the greatest mentors in my life have coaches too. We all need help growing and developing, understanding ourselves and our coworkers better. If we could figure it out on our own or help them to figure it out without any help, then we would have already done it. No one wants to live in a constant state of frustration or unhappiness, or at least no one would want to be around. With all that being said, allow me to take a few minutes here to speak into my path that led me to where I'm at today, and to speak into some of the pains that I've had that may resonate with you, or perhaps inspire you to let us help you to take action in your life. To challenge you, to motivate you, and to most importantly raise your self-awareness so that you can become a better version of yourself, which in turn makes everyone around you better versions of themselves as well. You see, for me, I think it all started in youth sports, and what I've come to find out was subconsciously. I was naturally drawn to positions of leadership and high influence without understanding why at the time. In baseball, I was the catcher. In basketball, I was the point guard. In soccer, I played center midfielder. So with all the sports I played as a child, I had the ball in my hands or at my feet for a majority of the action. I was also in positions of great influence on the game. In baseball, you call the plays and pitches and get the ball on literally every single pitch. In basketball, I also called the plays and led the team. In soccer, you have to play offense and defense and play on the left and right sides. As you can tell, I was naturally drawn to leadership and influence, even at a young age. I was lucky enough to parlay that into a college basketball scholarship at a Division II university in Missouri, where I was able to experience great personal achievements and accolades, but we were never able to achieve the type of success that I longed for as a team. I think that's where my curiosity began to be piqued, again subconsciously at the time, but I was always wondering why we weren't able to achieve more success than to be around 500 with all the talent that we had on our teams. I certainly don't blame the head coach or anyone in particular. It was a combination of us not being aware of how our behaviors were affecting our team off the floor, and then how to communicate and motivate each other more effectively on the floor. The talent was certainly there, we just didn't have the awareness to achieve it. This was also where I unfortunately received my first taste of extreme adversity, in that we lost one of our teammates in a drunk driving accident my first year. I am much more conscious of it now than I was at the time, but you could see all the shifts start to take place in our behaviors, how we communicated, almost across the board. After Greg's death, we lost 6 straight games that season and never really recovered the rest of the season. I wish I would have had the tools that we offer here at Peak Influence to deal with the tragedy that took place that season, but we were able to get by in what was a tough learning experience for me at the time. Next, after leaving college, I went on to be a volunteer assistant, where I was ready to take on the world and show everyone how great a coach I was going to be. We won 3 games and lost 27. Talk about setting the world on fire. We were terrible. I learned a lot what not to do that season, but also got hit over the head with the reality of how hard coaching would be no matter what level I was going to be coaching at. Athletic coaching, or managing, which is actually a more accurate term for what athletic coaches do, is extremely difficult, especially when you're trying to coach without the awareness that we can provide into a team or individual's motivation. While we weren't world beaters that year, we should have won way more than 3 games. Lesson learned. Next, I went on to junior college in Arizona, where we had significantly more success, winning 23 games our first year. I was working for a coach that was very much ahead of his time in the field of analytics, and he used that knowledge to help put us in the right position to have some success. This was the first time I had been around a coach that dismissed players that were more talented if they weren't the right fit organizationally or culturally, as a lot of the programs will put it. It was shocking at first, but after winning 23 games our first year, we went on to win 24 games our second year and a share of the conference championship. We'd eventually lose in the game before the junior college national tournament, but it was a great 2-year run nonetheless. Unfortunately, I'd also experienced my second lesson in extreme tragedy and how important communication can be, in that the head coach and his wife were in the middle of a divorce and had separated into different homes in the middle of my second season there. While sparing you the details, she grew so frustrated with a variety of aspects of their relationship that she felt like the only way out was to take her life and the life of their 2-year-old son. Truly a tragedy. At the age of 24, I became the interim head coach and had no idea how to handle the situation. I decided to throw myself into my work and essentially go on autopilot for the 18 to 22-year-olds that I was now in charge of, and it worked, temporarily. While the head coach was away, we won the only game that I coached, and as I alluded to, we ended up winning the conference championship that season. But I look back again longing on having the tools that we possess now to help everyone involved with that situation. Next, I headed to a junior college in Kansas where we had great success in winning 32 games our first season and finishing third in the country. That season was great, one of the most enjoyable of my coaching career, but would also lead to learning lessons in the following seasons. You see, we had sold our souls, so to speak, in the seasons that followed, and we wandered away from holding our guys accountable and focusing on their growth as individuals to achieve the success that we had attained our first season. And while we still won 23 and 24 games respectively, we still could have achieved much more if we would have focused more on their growth and their development as people and players versus the success that we longed for from that first season. Again, another lesson learned. Finally, I landed at a Division II school in Kansas where I learned firsthand about the law of the lid, as John Maxwell calls it. We had a severe leadership lid there in a couple areas within the organization, and because of that, we were always extremely inconsistent as a team and as a program. Our turnover rate was always extremely high personnel-wise, and we could never achieve consistent success. We'd have one great year and win a conference tournament championship, and then have another season where we won only 8 games. A frustrating process, as you can imagine. Here was a remarkable lesson that I learned on the coaching ranks over the course of 12 years. You see, all 3 coaches I worked for won Coach of the Year while I worked for them, and all 3 were fired within a few years after I left. That had nothing to do with me. I wasn't some great coach or player whisperer that made those programs successful. What that experience taught me, more than anything else, was that if we don't start to adjust our behaviors and learn how to most effectively communicate with our organization, all while also learning how to most effectively motivate them, just like we teach individuals and organizations to do here at Peak Influence, it won't matter how good of a coach you are. Eventually, you'll get stuck in a situation that you're not equipped to handle, and you'll then be looking for a new job or tired of being in a position where you and your teams are so inconsistent. So tying a bow on this About Us section here, let's get back to what I started with. This isn't about us. This is about you. How can we help you grow? How can we help you and your organization be more effective? What pain can we help you to ease? I've been through a bunch of learning and growing events in my life. Some of them I didn't even get to share with you on this video, but I'd be happy to share them with you sometime. But most importantly, sign up and reach out to me and let's get started. Let's figure it out so we can get you to where you want to be, both personally and professionally, and not waste another second in your comfort zone of life or stuck somewhere that you just don't want to be.